Hey guys, welcome to another episode of DarshanTalks. My name is Darshan Kulkarni. I am here with the perennially popular Alec Burlakoff. Alec, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Alec Burlakoff. Pleasure to be here, Darshan. I am a former pharmaceutical entrepreneur, and since then, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster here. That's what we're talking about.
We are talking about the roller coaster. We've actually talked about that ride all the way to the top, where you were an impressively performing salesperson. You had you previously worked in the diagnostic function in the sleep category, and then you'd sort of moved over to Insys, where you had demonstrated excellence in selling. However, what sort of happened at that point was that next step, which is you're dealing with a Schedule II opioid. You were part of the process that was pushing this the drugs out there. You were working with, I believe you said, the 80-20 rule, the 98-2 rule, as you put it, where the top performers came out and you sort of guided them and helped them and all that good stuff. So I guess we're at that stage where you've been doing so well, and then things started crumbling and crashing. So talk to me about the first day you knew something was awry.
Well, I would say, I think I've mentioned before, I'm a little shy when it comes to firing people in the pharmaceutical industry because, based on my experience, there's a lot of gray. There's a lot of lines that are crossed, right. Some more blatantly than others. In any case, as head of sales, one of the things that you have to do, as opposed to when I was a manager or even a director, as head of sales, you really learn that you have to support your managers and directors. So if I had a manager or director that wanted to fire someone, I would still try to talk them out of it. But there were situations where, they pushed back on me hard and said that I'm not being supportive of them, for a plethora of reasons. They have all the evidence as to why this person should be terminated. And I would try to rationalize with them as to why it's better just to leave them be, quite frankly, regardless of whether or not they're producing. But, in their eyes, they only had 10 people that they were accountable for and getting paid on. I had the entire country. So perhaps I wasn't being fair, right? So anyway, I gave in. And I specifically remember, the one person, he wanted to fire a female rep, and she was pregnant, and she made it clear that, if we fired her, there would be trouble. And long story short, she was terminated, and she did blow the whistle. She was a whistleblower. She went to the government. If it wasn't her, it would have been someone else, and I'm sure she wasn't the only one. Literally, I'm sure. I know at least another one. But the other one also was terminated. So you don't terminate in pharmaceuticals. So that's the first time where I said, "Oh, trouble's coming." But it was quite some time, between that day where I learned of the disgruntled employee, and then when I actually became aware that the government was investigating.
So that's kind of interesting because I don't know if you've been following. There was a situation where a female attorney was apparently she went on maternity leave, and while on maternity leave, she started looking for another job, and she worked for a law firm. And the attorney at the end of it, so she found another job. So she came back from maternity leave, gave notice, and left. And a male attorney took that opportunity to send out a text message to her privately saying, "Karma's a bitch. I can't believe you did that. You used maternity leave to sit around and send job letters to other people. And I think that's using company time, and it's a terrible thing." So the reason I point to that is because you pointed to this idea that she was pregnant in your situation. Were you expecting more of an HR type complaint, or did you know it was going to be troubles are brewing more in the sales function? Or did you at that time think you were completely compliant with everything there was to do around sales?
No, I've never thought we were completely compliant since the first day I worked in pharmaceutical sales.
Oh, interesting.
I knew with 100% certainty that that we weren't completely compliant. I don't think I've ever been a part of the sale of a drug that wasn't partially promoted off-label and out of its indication. So, no. Did I know to the extent to which the trouble would be? Meaning, was she just going to sue for wrongful termination and go to the HR? Was she going to go to the government? I had no idea. But I just, and again, I didn't know for sure, but I just felt trouble brewing. I felt uneasy. I always feel uneasy when someone gets terminated because there's hard feelings. And, in the pharmaceutical industry, there's holes to be punched, if somebody wants to make trouble.
So at that point, you fought your case internally. You tried to say, no, this is not a direction we should go. They said, no, you should. Did you sit down and terminate? Did you do it as delicately as you possibly could to minimize the fallout, or was it more HR just took care of it, or how did that play itself out?
HR took care of it, and she made it clear, right then and there. You realize you're firing a pregnant woman.
Right.
I mean, she couldn't have made it more clear that there was going to be problems. HR, they probably get that every day. Their take would be, Alec, we can't function like that. We can't not fire because we think there's going to be trouble, right? Because then HR would be out of a job. But in the end of the day, it's not HR that deals with the consequences. It's me, in the end of the day, I'm the head of sales. So they're going to come back and say, Alec Burlakoff said this, Alec Burlakoff did this, Alec Burlakoff, that's just the way it goes.
So you had this one individual, and then there was a second individual that you're also aware of who possibly blew the whistle. And then something happened. When was it the next thing there's a subpoena? Because the usual way these things work from a legal standpoint is the government gets notified and then the government starts digging, and that can be weeks, it can be months, it can be years, in some cases it can be decades. So they're just collecting information. So talk to me a little about that. What was it?
Everything was downplayed because my job was to head sales, so they didn't want me distracted by things that could be of great concern. I was told that the government was looking into things, and not to delete any messages on my email or my phone. They could be taking my phone at some point in time, along with anybody else in the company. I mean, the direction was the same across the board. Things along those nature, things that I've had experience before with other companies at lower levels, but experience. It was not a huge deal, although behind the scenes, I think it was tremendous. But they downplayed it and just wanted me to be.
How do you get notified?
At that point in the game, I do think we had a head counsel internal.
Okay.
And he spoke with me. That's again, it's a little while now, but I believe it was him at that time. I know we did have head counsel. I know I worked with him. And then months later, maybe even a year later, again, it's hard, the timeline, but I was in California working, and I was sitting down, got a phone call because we were appointed a civil attorney through the government. I'm sorry, through our employer, through Insys. Several of us, I don't know how many, let's say 5 to 10. We all had the same guy. Okay. And he was a civil attorney, and just to guide us and advise us, or if we had any questions.
Individually?
Yeah. I'm sorry?
Each of you individually had this attorney, or did this guy represent the company and you just happened to be part of the company?
No. He was an outside counsel that represented between 5 to 10 of us.
Okay, got it.
As a group. Then I got a call in California one day. I was sitting down from that lawyer, and he said, "Alec, you sitting down? I don't have great news. I can no longer be your attorney. You need to get a criminal attorney. I have been informed that you are you're not even a person of interest anymore. You're a subject of a federal investigation." So that was a big day for me.
So when was this? About what time? Like which years? So talk to me a little bit about timelines. I'm trying to get a sense of how long this whole process took.
I started in 2012. I'm going to say like 2014.
So 2014, you found out you terminated this individual employee, plus or minus.
No, 2000. No, in 2012 we terminated that employee.
Okay, so 2014, you got something from your in-house counsel saying, "Look, your cell phone may be taken away. Your people may start looking through your computers, blah blah blah." And then at some point, how long after you've gone from person of interest to subject? How long?
Well, I didn't even know I was a person of interest. I just know when I got the call saying I was a subject, so I was past a person of interest. I spoke with the people at the company, and they said that they would help me get an attorney, a criminal attorney, and gave me a short list, and we interviewed a few and hired an attorney. I don't even know, quite frankly, at that point, how I managed to keep it together and continue to lead, because I really didn't slow down. I didn't change. At least I don't think I did. I felt like I was working as hard and as feverishly as I ever had. What I should have done really is probably just, resigned right then and there and been done. But there were concerns. I was concerned that if I did resign, then, would they continue to pay for my attorney, and how much is this going to cost? And, all these things that go through your head. Right. So I really don't know what the answer is. I'm just glad that, I'm speaking to you today, having gone through it, as opposed to being at the beginning where I was back then. I'm in a better place. But yeah, that was the beginning of the end. Again, I don't know exactly when, but let's say 2014, and then 2015, I resigned from the company. They put me on as a consultant. That was an interesting thing. They put me on as a consultant, so we were still on good terms. But then 3 months later, they terminated my consulting agreement. And that's when I knew that things were going to really get ugly, that the gloves were taken off and people were taking sides, and I was no longer really going to be protected by the company or even considered an ally of the company. That, quite frankly, that they were going to scapegoat me and use me as the patsy, which is ultimately, it's what happened. I mean, there's media out there, I think it's the HBO documentary where the lead prosecutor, Fred Wyshak, speaks about that, how that Alec he knew that he was going to be scapegoated. Somebody's got to take the fall. And that's just the hard part about being in business. And, being head of sales, vice president of sales sounds like a big job, but, I wasn't really even C-level. Really, I was low man on the totem pole when it came down to really push come to shove.
So, I mean, there's like 100 steps between that I want to sort of discuss. So, when did you first see the subpoena? Did you ever see the subpoena?
I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen the subpoena, ever. No.
Interesting. Yeah, so all you're hearing is some lawyer telling you you're in trouble. You don't really know for what.
When I was dealing with the first lawyer before I had a problem, they made it like we weren't even in trouble. It's very, people will listen to this and say, well, Alec, you're a fool. It's your job to find out. And they're right, but when you're going through it and you're working and you think your whole life is about doing the job and showing up and producing and being strong as far as a leader is concerned, as opposed to worrying about what really is important when it comes to being strong, which is being there for your family. I was more concerned about being strong for Insys and continuing to drive sales. Just completely, wrong in every way.
Which is an important question. When did you tell your family that, like, what part of the I may be in trouble to I am in trouble to I'm really in trouble? When did you start informing your family?
I mean, I told my wife every step of the way.
So even when they said that, oh, we're just sort of looking into it, as you saw it was a non-issue, you still told her that people are looking into us.
Yeah. I mean, I am a stressed guy, and so I told her, but I said, listen, I've been in pharma a long time. I've seen this happen pretty much with every company I've been to, and I've never seen anybody have an issue, perhaps civilly, but not criminally, So, they may fine us 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10 from what I've seen. The company pays the fine. It has nothing to do with me personally. That was the conversation that we had. Now, when I received the call that I was the target of investigation, she saw a very different side of me, as far as concern. But I still tried to, I still kept going to work and tried to downplay it the best I can. I didn't really panic until the company cut the consulting agreement. Again, that's when I panicked. That's when I knew in my heart that they were having conversations behind the scene that led them to believe that their best strategy was to get rid of me and scapegoat me.
But that's kind of interesting, right? Because what you pointed out is you were not the highest in the totem pole. That there were people higher than you. You had a boss you reported to who was not the CEO, for example. How did they, in the end, were they charged? Did they sort of pay a fine? Did they have any kind of?
Yeah, in the end. Basically, the executive chairman of the board, the founder of the company, he was charged a year later after the 6 of us were indicted. So clearly he thought that he was good to go and out of the woods and had given them enough meat to eat. But clearly the government felt after eating that they wanted more and bigger, a bigger meal, and felt that they had enough evidence to move forward, which again is, from what I've seen, unprecedented, that they would go that high. The owner of the company was a true billionaire. You would think that that might be someone that's difficult to go after. On the other hand, if you're the government, I don't think they're intimidated by very much.
So that's kind of interesting. So the idea that, when did at this point you have a girlfriend, you have you're not with your wife anymore. When did you start paying the price in your personal life?
You're saying at this point, meaning
today you have a girlfriend, which means you don't have a wife.
Yeah, today, right. I have a girlfriend. I'm divorced.
Right.
Yeah, I my wife stuck by me, through, so I was indicted in 2016. I was sentenced in 2020 and got out of prison on, somewhere in 2021. She stuck with me. She didn't divorce me until I got out of prison.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When I literally got released from prison, went to the halfway house, was there on day 2 or 3 and got served papers. It's all going to come crashing down. It may all come at once in one full swoop on the same day, or it may come in increments, slowly but surely, but it's going to come. And, even when I went to prison, you talk with people that are like, oh, that last shoe is going to drop. It's coming, it's just, you think that, you do something wrong and you go to prison and that it's over. That's just the beginning. And I'm seeing, firsthand that you just never know what the next day is going to bring you. But you do know that it's never over. the consequences.
So we'll get back to that part of it. I didn't know whether it happened before or I didn't know whether your wife left you before or after. But it sounds like it was just part of the many dominoes that drop, if you will. So walk me through that process. You've now you've become a subject of the investigation. You're one of, you said, 5 to 6 people who were charged. Do you happen to remember who they were? I imagine this kind of stuff is like indelible in your memory at this point.
No, I do.
I mean, in terms of roles, I'm not trying to name people. I'm trying to get a sense of roles.
I mean, the CEO, so my direct superior, the director of sales, 2 directors.
Oh, which directors were there? Like, who
there
did
were
they
3
go out?
directors. There were 3, so 2 to 3.
So, I'm sorry, 3 directors of sales, or?
Well, no, there's one director of sales under me, and then there's a director of the Mid-Atlantic, different regions of the United States.
Okay, so these are also sales function, is what I was asking. So it's all
and then the vice president of managed care was also indicted.
Okay, so
there's a whole other part to the story that really is not very close to me. I could speak on it from the outside, but I prefer not to because it's not my forte. But yeah, there was a managed care issue with the company as well. That was a big issue.
Okay. But that's going down the issue of fraud, and that's going down the issue of billing and all that good stuff.
Correct.
Which is not the area we're talking about right now. You were caught up more in the issue of off-label marketing and all that stuff.
Off-label marketing in violation of the anti-kickback statute.
And violation of the anti-kickback statute. What kind of, when you say anti-kickback statute, what were you doing that was a violation of the anti-kickback statute?
We were paying physicians through disguised through speaker programs. So physicians can be paid to speak to other physicians, do peer-to-peer programs. We were paying them not to speak, but to prescribe more of the drug substance. More times than not, they didn't speak to anyone or about anything. They just went to dinner with some friends or whomever wanted to get a free meal. That's quid pro quo.
And how much did you pay them?
Anywhere between $1,000 to $3,000 a program, and they would all max out. Our main guys would max out. Please don't hold me to the numbers because I really don't know. It's somewhere between $100,000 to $150,000 for a year.
Wow. Okay, so these guys are getting paid $100,000 to $150,000 a year to quote unquote do speaker programs where no speaking actually took place. How did you choose these people?
Well, process of elimination. The fact of the matter is most healthcare providers are really good, ethical people that want to do only what's in the best interest of the patient. They took a Hippocratic oath, and through constant targeting and messaging and probing and uncomfortable conversations, and even situations where the doctor literally was so offended that they would get up and walk away from the table in the middle of a meal or a restaurant, you find those few, that 2%, right, that are willing, ready and able. And, it sounds easy to bribe somebody, and perhaps for others, maybe it is in some areas of life or business or whatnot. But personally, in healthcare, I don't think it is very easy. I think it's very hard. It's not easy to find those people, but they're out there because we're human beings. They're human beings. And human beings are all the same in that there are always some that will be tempted to do or go astray because of greed.
Now, talk to me about those conversations, because I hear both sides of this. One side that I hear is always, I'm a doctor. I've taken the Hippocratic oath. I will never be tempted by a meal or a pen. That's ridiculous. I make more than enough money to pay for my own meal. This other side you hear is, doctors are so easily influenced. It's ridiculous. It's the most easy thing in the world. Offer someone a meal and they will do whatever you want. What was your experience like? How you said some people were easy to talk to, but some people were so offended they walked away in the middle of a meal. So talk to me about some of those conversations that you had. What were you trying to find out?
Listen, my slogan in sales has always been find a way to get uncomfortable every single day. If you're not uncomfortable, you're not doing your job. And that's what this was all about. It was having an uncomfortable conversation with a healthcare provider in a way that's comfortable enough for you to pull it off.
But what would you say in that conversation? What was the goal of that conversation?
You're going to be very candid, very candid. I mean, once you get them out to dinner and you sit them out at the table and you've had a glass or two of wine, you flat out tell them, listen, we have these speaker programs. We can pay you anywhere between $1,000 and $3,000 a program. There's a maximal budget of anywhere between $100 and $150. We are going to pay you through that vehicle. You will not have to do anything but simply show up for dinner and fill some chairs so we can make it look good on paper. Now, I want to be clear with you, Doc. I have a boss, and my boss requires a 2-to-1 return on investment. So every dollar we spend on you, we expect 2 in return minimum. Or, for me, I mean, there's going to be hell to pay, but for you, it just means that the gig is up. Like, you won't get another talk; you'll be cut off immediately. So it's completely up to you. But if you want to move this direction, I've been candid with you. I just hope that you could be candid with me in return, and that's it. Either they're on board or they're not, and hopefully we walk away with no hard feelings, which happened most of the time. But again, sometimes they were just completely just offended and disgusted, where they would just get up from the table in the middle of a meal. That's the extreme of sales, is embracing rejection. And working with this company for this man, this is not the type of sale where you want to be ambiguous or unclear with regards to what it is you're proposing, because the only thing that's going to happen is it's going to blow up in your face. There's going to be real consequences. So it better just to be completely clear and take the chance of things blowing up at the table as opposed to things blowing up in the boardroom because you spent a ton of money and the doctor just took you for a ride, because that happens in the industry all the time. Yeah, Alex, sounds great. I'll do it. I love the product. I'm gonna put 50 patients on it. And then 3 months go by, he's done 7 talks and he still has 2 patients on the drug. That's the way it should be, right? He's the doctor. I'm gonna do what I want. I get that, but at that point in my life, the way I thought was, I have a job to do. This is my job. Respect me. I respect you. Let's move forward together. I would love that. That's kind of how that went.
So were any of these doctors also subpoenaed?
Yeah, there was a number of doctors who had problems, criminal, civil and criminal. 2 doctors literally. Again, I don't know the cases and what exactly they got the time for, but partially related to their involvement at Insys and their prescribing of substance. 2 doctors, notably in Alabama, got like 20 and 21-year sentences. Now,
wow.
I believe that there were some deaths involved and multiple medications that the patient was taking and all kinds of mitigating circumstances. And, when you're dealing with pain patients, especially, it becomes very complicated. They're typically not on just one medication, meaning they just took substance. And this death could be directly attributed to substance. But again, I'm not a lawyer. You are a lawyer. I've already said too much with regards to that. But doctors were, again, prosecuted. And for their involvement, at least partially, with Insys and substance, that contributed to the sentences they received.
But you were never asked to be a witness to the conversations that took place or the mechanisms you used to target these doctors.
No, I was. I pled guilty and was called as a government witness in in the trial. I was myself and the CEO. We were 2 of 7 that pled guilty. The other 5 decided to go to trial. So we were both spent a significant amount of time on the stand. Once I pled guilty, I had just decided I had enough and didn't see the point in continuing to try. In my eyes, I know you have a right to defend yourself, but in my eyes, defending myself only meant more lies and deceit. And I just wanted to tell the truth and just try to move forward quickly. You really can't speed the process up. It's actually a very slow process, especially when you're going through it. But that was the way I was thinking.
So you said some of the others did not plead guilty. Are those cases still pending?
They all were found guilty, and they all have been. They all have already gone to prison and have either gotten out or in a halfway house on probation. On probation, or still serving time in prison.
Do you know what the range of the sentences were?
Yeah, somewhere approximately between a year to 5.5 years.
And how much was yours?
26 months.
So about 2
2
years.
2 years, 2 months. Yep.
Yeah. So who got the 5.5 years?
The owner.
Okay. So
Yeah.
so it
And
wasn't.
remember, he also went to trial. I mean, if he didn't go to trial, he would have had significantly less. That's something that you probably are aware of, but that's something I learned through going through the system, but also just going to prison. The people in prison, the ones who went to trial, they all wish that they had just, come to Jesus sooner than later and pled guilty.
You had to show up and present as a witness, sometimes against people who were your own employees at that point. Is that fair?
Yes.
And what was that like? Because that has to be a very uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is uncomfortable. What makes it easier is knowing that they had all turned against me prior.
Okay.
That made it a lot easier. I mean, it still was uncomfortable. Many of them, I still considered, I don't know, to be friends, but I cared for. One which I had a great dislike for, so that was a little easier. But yeah, I originally was in a joint defense agreement with our government, and then it became clear that the defense was going to be to turn against me and throw me under the bus.
So when you realized that was happening, who was your attorney? Was the company still paying for the attorney, or were you let loose?
Yeah, the company was still paying.
So even though you were technically going against the company was paying for the attorney to go against them.
Yep, I believe so.
If that was accurate, did you wish that you would have quit earlier, because then you could have possibly had that same type of support from an attorney? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I just don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
So many what ifs.
Yeah.
Very difficult. I don't know that it would have changed my situation any. The time to leave was before that.
Time to leave was 2012, but
the time, before I even went there. Yeah, but I mean, literally, if I'd left in 2012, any time in that year, I think I would have been okay as far as not having been indicted. But yeah, any time after that I was there too long.
So you then got out of prison, and the prison happened during COVID, and COVID was interesting because you talked about what that jail time was like. So where did you go? Actually, you know what? We're past time. Do you mind if we came in and we talked about jail and the halfway house afterwards, if we as a separate conversation?
No, yeah, I don't mind.
Alec, before we go, you have a book out. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I have a book. It's called Selling Hard Lessons Learned. It's on Amazon, and it tells my story really from birth to now, the journey, what made me the man that I was, what's making me the man that I am, and what's making me the man that I want to be. And through that story, I integrate sales principles that I used through my whole life and still believe that to be very, very valuable, as long as you can find that middle ground to ensure proper balance between your values, your ethics, and your desire to be successful in sales.
And that's actually something you talk about in your sales program, where you talk about not wanting to make the best salesperson, but the second best salesperson, if you will.
Yeah, for me, based on my experience, if you really want to be happy across all areas in your life, be in the top 10%. If you want to be number one, I get it. That was me, but based on my experience, I don't think that's going to bring you a lot of happiness and joy.
Alec, this was amazing as always. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for sharing. I'm looking forward to the next conversation.
Me too. Thank you very much, Darshan.